There you go.
Yeah, it does not want to stream to Facebook Live. Worked the other day when we tested it, but apparently it does not want to go. So, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. We're not going to wait for that. Val's going to do a post that says the video is available. Will be available as soon as the meeting is over on Facebook. And then she will answer comments that people have from there. But for questions and comments that were to be addressed during the actual meeting, those comments and questions had to be submitted by 9 a.m. and I'll explain that once the meeting gets started. So
I received no comments, so we won't have any to read today.
okay. Well, we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, the meeting is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton?
Here.
Dr. Estrada?
He needs to be unmuted.
There you go, Dave.
Dr. Estrada?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here. Please join me in the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet, especially in these very special times. We pray for the people of Springfield, and we hope that the disease will not hit us in a major way. We pray for cooperation from our citizens in attempting to reduce the number of people who get sick by staying in our own homes and not congregating. Help us to make decisions that are good for the people of Springfield. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, let's begin. Allegiance
to the flag
Okay.
of the United States
United States of
of
America.
America and to the
Republic
republic
which it
And it
stands,
stands.
one nation, under God,
God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Thank you, Rob. Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The clerk will proceed with first readings by title only.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for demolition services with Tony Smith, doing business as Tony Smith Wrecking and Trucking, for an amount not to exceed $600,000. Authorizing the city manager to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET Project Agreement number 33222 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation, to provide the city with eligible costs of up to a maximum sum of $1,544,209.40 for the Yellow Spring Street reconstruction, Phase 2, PID number 109607, authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement said agreement, and authorizing an expenditure up to $386,052.35 to be used as matching funds in connection with the agreement to be entered into with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Consenting to the microsurface of the existing pavement on Interstate 70 in Clark County from State Route 40 to just west of Selma Road, including a portion within the city of Springfield, by the Ohio Department of Transportation, identified as CLA 70, and further identified by PID number 109790, providing for the maintenance of the right-of-way and authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements with the Director of Transportation of the state of Ohio necessary to complete the project.
Are there questions or comments on first readings from commissioners?
Yes, on item number 101-20, how much is ODOT putting for this project?
Yes, let me unmute Chris Moore and start his video, and I'll have him answer that question.
Thank you.
Chris?
Commissioner Chilton, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. This project does not cost the city anything. This is simply a participatory agreement for them to let us know they're going to be doing work on a portion of I-70 that happens to just jog inside the city limits. So this costs the citizens of Springfield no local money.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? David?
Hang on, Dave.
100-20, the contract with Tony Smith for $600,000. Later in the agenda, we have on second reading hang on a second, 108-19 on second reading, increasing the amount for Tony Smith by $220,000, not to exceed $620,000. How do the two go together?
Yes, Steve Thompson, would you like to answer that?
So the first reading is for the new contract that will go into place starting the first week of June. And so that will take us through June of 2021 at that point. The item that is up for a second reading is amending the existing contract that is in place until June of 2020.
Great, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Clerk will proceed with second readings.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept a 2020 Energized Community Grant through the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, in an amount up to $86,100 to be used for implementation of energy savings or energy infrastructure measures, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement for the acceptance of said grant, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the submission of the application and acceptance of the grant, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
Move to adopt. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, I had a question, basically not necessarily about this particular item, but I am still getting questions from some of our citizens, and they don't understand what the NOPEC and the aggregate program is from the city of Springfield. So I was hoping that someone could explain that from the staff.
Yes, Mark, would you want to explain just the aggregation program and our relationship specifically with NOPEC?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Commissioner Chilton, the NOPEC aggregation agreement dates back to when we passed, the citizens of Springfield passed and gave us the ability to enter into an aggregation agreement, which means we group all of our accounts for electricity together for the city of Springfield and contract with a supplier in order to achieve the best price for our citizens. Originally, we were with First Energy. When we reached a point with our concerns relative to First Energy's viability as a company because they had entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy, we chose to contract with NOPEC Inc., and they are, through NextEra Energy, are the supplier of electricity for those citizens in Springfield who wish to participate in the program. The citizens have the ability to opt out and secure their own electrical service if they so choose, but if they do not opt out, they are part of the aggregation and receive favorable pricing because of that.
Okay, well, I think Ohio Edison sent out some notices to some citizens, and they weren't quite sure whether they wanted this or not. So what is the advantage for the city and the advantage for the citizens?
Well, the advantage for the citizens is, first of all, they do not have to shop for their electricity. They receive a favorable pricing without having to do anything at all, and it will show up on their bill. The transmission piece of their bill from Ohio Edison still comes through the mail, and they still pay one bill and one bill only. It's just that NOPEC is the supplier of the actual electricity. So the advantage for them is both convenience and favorable pricing. The advantage for the city is obviously we are doing something community oriented for our citizens, and NOPEC gives back, as you can see through this particular grant, to the city of Springfield. It returns some of that money into our community so that we can address some energy efficient projects that we hope will be good for the citizens of Springfield.
So thank you. So it's basically a win-win for the citizens and for the city as a whole. So thank you, Mark.
I think what may be confusing for people is that there are two different elements here. One is the day-to-day servicing of the lines and that kind of stuff, which Ohio Edison is still doing. Then the second is the actual paying for the electricity, and that's what's through NOPEC at a price lower than if we went with Ohio Edison. So, and I understand why that's confusing to people, because they assume that one company would do all of it. Kevin, you had something you wanted to say?
I had a question for Mark on the length of the contract. When we did do this, just so for the general public, it was open for bid at that time, to my recollection. And NOPEC was chosen by our staff because of its expertise in what was going on and just their community involvement with other places. So when will this be about optioned up again, Mark? Is there a renewal?
Excuse me?
Is there a renewal currently?
There is one more renewal, I believe, on our contract. I would have to get the dates and send them to you. Don't have that off the top of my head.
Since we are pretty much satisfied with the operation currently, would we have to open that contract back up, or will it kind of be continued on without being opened?
Well, we have the ability as city staff to enter into that contract with your approval. We did not take that out for bid. Was not a requirement.
But we interviewed several companies.
Yes, we did. We looked around and tried to find the best options available. After 6 months worth of research, we felt that NOPEC was the best for us at that point in time.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's proceed.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing section 1213.07K within chapter 1213 entitled Plan Approval Procedures relating to the adopted subdivision regulations.
So moved.
To adopt.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 2 to the contract for demolition services with Tony Smith, doing business as Tony Smith Wrecking and Trucking, to increase the contract amount by $220,000 for a total amount not to exceed $620,000.
So
Move to adopt.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
this is the money that is used to demolish the houses that are beyond repair. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'll have Steve also chime in again.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
This has no monies for the Cole Collier? I mean, this has nothing to do with that. When is he going to be done with that, do you think?
Steve, do you want to give an update from what you've heard from Tony Smith?
Sure. So the last I heard, they're still working to crunch up the debris that's there, and they said they'll take a couple more weeks. And at that point, they'll start clearing all the debris from the right of way. So hopefully, it won't be too much longer after that the site will be done.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Approving and adopting the Clark County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation 5-year plan update for the city of Springfield, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I wonder if Brian might give us an overview of this, or one of the staff.
Yeah, I'll actually ask Paul Hicks to do that. Paul?
Hello, Commissioners. This is the mitigation plan that is reviewed every 5 years. It's actually been 7 years since the last one. There were no new projects that were identified in the city, but if something would come up that was identified, or if we have issues that occur later on and it's added to this plan, then we can get reimbursement dollars from FEMA.
Great.
And just to add, so we work with Clark County EMA. They are the lead agency on developing and reviewing this plan.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into LPA agreement number 33109, amendment number 2, between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the Yellow Springs Street Reconstruction Phase 1, PID number 109491, to increase funding limits and revise funding for all phases of the project.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. What part of Yellow Springs is this? And again, what time frame are we looking at for starting the project?
Yes, Commissioner, I'll have Chris Moore activated again so he can answer that question for you. Chris?
Commissioner, this is the area that would be from Main Street to Grand Avenue. It will be done in 2 separate phases, one from Main to Pleasant, one from Pleasant to Grand. The northernmost phase from Main to Pleasant would happen no sooner than the summer of 2022. And the southernmost section would happen no sooner than the summer of 2023.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a loan agreement with Opportunities Industrialization Center of Clark County, Ohio Incorporated, OIC, in connection with the construction of a new single-family home on Robson Street as part of the OIC Youth Build Program for an amount not to exceed $182,300 of home funding.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I had a
Yes.
question of Shannon, I think.
Yep, I will ask her to, I'm going to start her video and unmute her. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, Shannon, on the 182,300, it's showing as a loan. Is this a payable loan or a forgiven type loan at the end?
So Our loans are repayable at this point in time. So what will happen is the proceeds of the sale of the home to the qualified home buyer will be utilized to repay the home loan that we're making, and then those funds will be recycled back into other home loan programs.
Okay, on this, is there any idea currently of what the house may sell for?
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up question, because there will be a reduction, 100%
Right.
won't be paid. The forgiveness will go to the qualified home buyer as down payment assistance. We're seeing homes in the area right now selling between $90,000 and $100,000.
Okay, I just want to emphasize that I'm in favor of the program. That's fine because it's government funds that if we don't use them, someone's going to. But this is something another builder could never do. And
Absolutely.
no, it is a good program for that neighborhood. We haven't had one of these for a while. So again, it's just not building something that's going to sell at it will sell at market value, but it's going to cost more to build this because of other things. So I just,
yes, and if I could add to very quickly, the home sales are going between $90,000 and $100,000. 10 years ago, when we were having these same discussions of the government funds being invested, we were looking at $55,000 and $65,000 sales. So obviously, the market has improved as a whole, but this has been a program that has shown productivity in that particular neighborhood.
well, OIC has done a good job over there. They have built several, and it's one of those things to where it's a good program for to get people involved, to get apprenticeship programs moving and things. So again, I can support this wholeheartedly. It just needs to be known that this is not a norm. This is just something that it happens. So in government. So thanks, Shannon.
An extra plus of this is that people who own homes in the area, their values are probably.
Sure it will.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I did have a question though for Shannon, because this is at-risk youth. I just wanted to make sure that the younger folks are being separated from some of the adults.
So what we're doing right now is working through the loan side of everything. Our youth build participants are not currently active in the program because of COVID-19. We hope that we will be able to resume with OIC and the youth build program as soon as practical and healthy. It is a commitment to the federal government and a use of federal funds to participate in youth build. But yes, please know that the students will not be actually constructing until it is safe and healthy once again.
Well, thank you, Shannon. That's what I was asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
I would also like to comment that I agree with what's been said. This is great for the neighborhood in terms of improving housing, but we're also teaching some very good skills to young people who hopefully can build on these and make future careers within the construction industry. So certainly this will have my support.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrad,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of a donation in the amount of $30,000 from the Springfield Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association to be used for the purchase of a mini caliber robot from iCore Technology Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? We're obviously grateful to the Springfield Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association for their contribution. Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrad,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing an expenditure to assist property owners of 307, 311, and 357 North Bechtel Avenue to connect their properties to an existing, more accessible, I might have left out a word here, to maintain water service and to enable the city to abandon the water service taps and 6-inch water main that are on Broadway and declaring an emergency therein.
So
Move
moved.
to adopt.
Second.
Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Do we want to authorize Jill to add a word if necessary there?
I'll figure out what happened.
There you
Okay. Okay, are there other items from commissioners? I guess I would want to share with the members of the commission. I am a member of the Organization of Mayors in Ohio. And as a piece of that, part of what they're very aware of is every city in Ohio is deeply dependent upon the taxes from people who work. And right now, there are a significant number of people not working in all of our cities, which means we're going to have to really be careful with our budgets over the next year because we will actually have less revenue coming in than we expected before we found out about this illness that's hitting us. So Brian and I have talked about this, and we're going to see what we can do to pay attention to that. Also, obviously, we are also going to be involved in some efforts to try to get some federal funds to fill the gap created by the fact that we will have some people not working during this period of time and therefore not paying taxes. So just a warning to all of us, and Brian's aware of it and he's working on it. Any other commissioners?
Warren, just a question for that. Is this, could there be a possibility that they could lobby to try to reopen those local government funds that were taken away a while back? And I mean, probably a dumb question, but I am curious if this could help do that.
Well, I think we would try that, but I think we suspect we have a better shot at getting federal funds than dislodging money from the state, because the state is going to be in the same situation. They're going to have less revenue coming in than they had projected. So a big hope would be that the funds that at this point, the money that's been voted at the federal level is limited to large cities. So Columbus is the only city in Ohio that qualified. So part of the effort will try to be to get the federal government to worry about the rest of us too.
Yeah, and commissioners, I'll just add to that. So as Warren said, the CARES Act, as it looked at reimbursement, gave money to the individual states to deal with the COVID-19 situation and let them push that money down to the local level. They are giving direct allocations to cities of 500,000 or more in population, which is, as the mayor stated, is Columbus for Ohio. Cincinnati and Cleveland actually fall below that threshold. And so Columbus is the only one receiving a direct allocation from the CARES Act. The rest of the money will be funneled down to the states, and the states will build their own individual programs of how they reallocate those funds to the local governments. Paul Hicks from our office is keeping tabs on that through both the EMA channels, but also from the state level. And then also we have, as many of you know, we had hired a lobbyist essentially that was working on our behalf for legislative items and legislative affairs. He is also working to figure out how the state is going to decide to allocate that money. He has actually had phone conversations with Senator Hackett as well as Representative Kaler to talk to them about what they foresee of Ohio and how Ohio will disperse those funds. So we are, as a staff, continually watching how we can hopefully bring those dollars, some of those dollars, back to Springfield in our community.
I have a couple of questions. One, Brian, for the sake of all of the members of the commission and the community at large, can you give a quick overview of the status of all the various city departments? Police, fire, service department, water, wastewater. Are we okay? Are we fully operational? How's everything going?
Yes, so I'll start on the police and fire, the first responders, as well as the dispatch. So right now, police and fire are both at full staffing. At one point, I know I shared that we had 9 members of our fire that were on quarantine orders because of possible exposure. Those members are all back serving. Police at one time had 2 members that were on quarantine. Those members were quickly turned around as testing has picked up speed in terms of getting test results back. So they were back quickly in the fold. And then on the dispatch side, we have 1 member that is currently on self-quarantine because of exposure. She is due to come back at the end of this week, first part of next week. So we will be back to full staffing and dispatch. So we remain fully operational there. On the service department side, yes, the plants, water, wastewater are fully operational, working. Chris Moore and his team have put together a protocol and policy in place to protect those members so that not all of them are all together at one point in time, so that we can continue those operations, as those obviously providing water and disposing of that water is very critical to our community. And so we will keep those things fully operational throughout this. The service center is still responding to issues with infrastructure out in our community, both through our streets and utility infrastructure. And so they are out there. They actually started mowing this week, because that's another thing. We do not want to start a public health concern by not mowing the grass and letting it get too tall and then creating other issues for our community. So they actually started the abandoned lot mowing program yesterday, and we'll be mowing those throughout the summer, and working with Steve and Shannon and the code enforcement contractors on making sure that we keep the mowing going in our community. Because again, we don't want to create another public health issue by not paying attention to those things. As far as community development goes, code enforcement officers are working remotely from their vehicles, and so they continue to work and are out there and looking for issues throughout the neighborhoods in our community, and trying to, they're trying to take a compassionate look at it and working proactively with the neighbors to solve the problems. So, not trying to be heavy-handed or anything. They're trying to work with the neighbors. Especially people are more attuned to being home, obviously, by the stay-at-home orders. And so trying to work with those property owners to correct violations that may exist and that may be causing issues for other people in surrounding properties. From a building regulation standpoint, they continue to work. They do inspections remotely. They do inspections by clearing out the vacant structures or the structures that are being worked on, and clearing out contractors and stuff to limit their exposure, but still conducting those inspections. What we're not doing is we're not encouraging or not taking those individual small residential permits that people are maybe trying to do. We're not inspecting those. We're not providing the services on that end, because that's very difficult to provide that. But our building regulations division is still working hard, as many building regulations divisions aren't working at all, or have taken a period of time where they're not doing any type of inspections or releasing new permits. So I'm proud to say that our building team continues to be out there and serving our community and allowing that construction to continue. From a housing perspective side, Shannon and her team are working on various elements. The federal government, through the CARES Act, is also providing some additional funds through CDBG and also our Emergency Solutions Grant Program. Her staff is looking at and watching for regulations to be pushed down, because they have not provided any guidance or regulations on how that money can be dispersed through the community. So her team is working diligently on that, and then working within the funds that they currently have. we were actually able to provide some funding to Second Harvest Food Bank, who had a need. Community development was able to recognize the need and was able to shift some dollars to them to be able to provide opportunity for them to continue to provide food access and food for our community, which is great. The airport is still functional. The terminal building is closed down to the public, but people are still able to utilize the fuel farm and get access to fuel that are flying. Obviously, you can imagine those numbers are down right now as terms of the activity out there, but they continue to work. And mowing is another big operation that occurs out at the airport. We have to continue to mow the grass, and that is starting this week as well. From a SCAT perspective, Logan has been staying in close connection with SCAT and working with their team. They remain operational as at the federal level. FTA is continuing to try to keep transportation options open for people, but providing it in a safe manner. So they've adopted several different policies and protocols, one to make sure that it's a clean environment for both the worker, the driver, as well as the patrons that are utilizing the bus service. But then also they're making sure that people are taking extra precautions as far as social distancing that do utilize the bus, because we want to continue to provide transportation, because as many of you know, transportation options are limited for many individuals in our community. And so that's a service that we want to continue to run as long as FTA is supportive and continuing to run those operations through our community. And then from just a communication standpoint, we continue to communicate daily with our citizens, providing information about the COVID-19 and what's going on, not only for our community, but across the state and across the country. For individuals interested, the best place to get information is our website at www.springfieldohio.gov. And right from the home page, there is information related to the COVID-19. And you can go back to the very beginning and find information and press releases and things that went out to the public, informing them about what's going on as it relates to COVID-19. I'm sure I missed a few things, but as you can see, we are still fully operational, though we are doing it in a little bit different manner, working more remotely. But we are working hard. Finance is continuing to issue payroll, which is obviously important at this time to keep those strings going. But then they are also working very diligently, to the mayor's point, of looking at our budget and fine tuning areas that we can either delay expenses or delay projects. They are taking a hard look at that. So the finance staff is working very, very diligently in looking and analyzing the budget on a daily basis to keep in tune with what's happening to our revenues, but then also on the expense side as well.
Well, I just want to thank you and all of the city staff for keeping the city operational during this crisis. I cannot say thanks enough or loud enough. We certainly appreciate all the diligent individuals out there for keeping our city going. Thank you very, very much. It's much appreciated.
I'd be remiss to say that I am very fortunate that I have the staff that I have. The staff has been great at all levels. We have a lot of people that care very deeply and passionately about this community, and they continue to serve this community. So I'm very fortunate that I have such a great staff that is continuing to work hard, even though we're kind of living a new normal right now, and things are different, and things have changed dramatically just over the last 3 to 4 weeks. But our staff continues to work hard and is very vested in this community and making sure that this community comes out stronger and better after this situation.
I'm sure all of us commissioners share the expression that Dave Estrop gave to our citizens. This may be a good time for me to read the following. Fellow commissioners, today I signed Amendment 2 to the Mayor's Proclamation and Executive Order of March 16, 2020. That's the proclamation that declared an emergency in Springfield and Clark County. Amendment 2 extends the original termination date to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Springfield. The director of the Ohio Department of Health stay-at-home order was extended to May 1st, and our order will follow her guidelines until she deems that order no longer needed. So we're basically staying in tune with the state's regulations. Until that time, all public meetings will be conducted virtually with public comments directed to the city clerk's office, 937-324-7341. So people who may see this meetings in the various ways that we will make it available to the public, if you have reactions or comments upon what we've done, you should call the clerk's office, 937-324-7341. Are there any comments from commissioners?
Brian, I have a couple of questions that you might want to pass on or pass through. Coming into the building season, for people that build homes, they usually plan to get things like this done because of the weather up here in Ohio, even though we had a great winter. Are we accepting plans for plan approval, and they can get plans approved to build on a lot that they may have, or even developers that can do that? How are we working with that right now, or is there going to be a delay?
No, so new construction projects continue to move as business as usual. One of the great things that Shannon and her team implemented was a digital plan submittal, electronic plan submittal. And so that's been in place for some time now. The electronic plan submittal method. Gene Gaver and his staff in the building department are still receiving and still reviewing those. We have not seen any drop off on the review time, so they're still quickly turning those things around. So no, individuals are continuing to submit plans electronically, and then they receive their building permit electronically as well, and then they can work with our staff to set up those inspections as they commence their construction activities.
Okay, and the next question I had were on this. Traditionally has always been tax season, as you're well aware, and I did see where the city has extended the time for payments but not for filing. Is that so? And if so,
can I address that?
I'll jump in here. We have extended both the deadline for payment and the deadline for filing, and we're following the same protocol as the federal government. So we're July 15th is now the due date.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Brian. Commissioner O'Neill, if you're finished.
I'm finished.
Okay. I wanted to check in, Brian, and I know you've got a incredible amount on your plate, as does the staff right now. But at some point, hopefully we'll get beyond this coronavirus thing. Where are we in terms of a grocery store for the South Side?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Commissioner Estrop. Our staff continues to work on the South Limestone Kroger related issue. We meet on a weekly basis, though we do it virtually now, but we are working as a staff on different concepts and ideas. We are also working with some potential developers and investors that are very much looking at how they can play a role and play a part in the redevelopment of not only the Kroger site, but really the corridor itself. And so we continue to work on those items, though via remotely. And we're working as a staff, and then also with, again, outside developers and interested investors on moving a plan or a strategy forward. So we would hope here in the next the month and a half that we would be able to come with an update to commission as opportunities present itself, and as we continue to have conversations, again, internally, but also externally with some of these interested parties that are looking at the opportunities to reinvest in the South Limestone corridor. The land bank continues to partner with us on the transfer of the building. The transfer of the building has not occurred yet. That is still in Kroger's name. The land bank prepared a very detailed building status report to implement or to show the current status of the building itself, as well as the equipment inside the building. And so that was very helpful. They are also continuing to work to get a title search completed on the property. And then their plan is to go to their board in early May to present them with the transfer opportunity from Kroger to the land bank, working in partnership with the city. And so again, you will see in the near future from us, we will propose as staff a recommendation that would provide a grant to the land bank to help with some of the operation and maintenance expenses that will occur while we're working on the redevelopment. We're currently fine-tuning those numbers with the land bank. Currently, we're hoping to get updated utility information now that the building has been empty for a month. That'll give us a clearer picture of what it will look like in terms of utility usage when the building is not fully operational, which will help us build those costs. So the land bank, Ethan Harris and I had a conversation yesterday, and he has reached out to Kroger to have a conversation with them and get updated utility information from March.
Great. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
By the way, there's the food operation is still available on a regular basis in the Kroger lot. And if you drive by when that's happening, there are a lot of people using it.
Yes. So there's been great partnership with Second Harvest Food Bank, utilizing the lot for their food delivery programs, but then also TAC Industries continues to run the shuttle service on both Wednesday evenings and Saturday and Sunday during the day. Their ridership has ticked up a little bit since this crisis started. And so they continue, again, with the same similar protocols and policies that SCAT has put in place for transportation. TAC Industries has put those similar policies and protocols in place to protect those that are utilizing the service, but TAC Industries continues to provide that shuttle service for individuals as well as another opportunity to get food access in the community.
Brian,
Commissioners.
I was curious from Lee, the chief, how are we seeing our citizens respond? Are they having any unusual issues with citizens responding and keeping safe distance, things like that?
Yeah, I'll ask Lee to answer that question. Yep, there's Lee.
Yes, Commissioner, so far, we're not having any issues in that regard. You know, we're trying to be very patient because we realize, you know, this is kind of unprecedented for all our citizens. But we haven't run into any issues in the stores or in the neighborhoods in that regard. So far, so good.
So within the jail, well aware the county runs the jail, but in the booking process, and you guys are down there, are there, is that area particularly being paid special attention to concerning this? And what's that look like, if in brief?
Well, the jail has set their own regulations as far as who they're taking in. They're doing medical checks, screening before anyone even gets into jail. And then they're taking any prisoners directly in. The officers are actually staying outside. Just trying to keep that jail safe, because obviously if they had an issue with everybody so close together in there, that would be a big problem. But we're very well aware of their regulations, and the officers are, and so far it's working out pretty well.
Thank you.
I just had an appeal to the parents, the grandparents, and the memas, the mamas, the nanas, because what I witnessed here on Southern Avenue and Center Street on Saturday was a gang of young boys between, let's say, 14 to 16, fighting in the streets. And I know that they weren't raised that way, but we as adults, you know, we're under functioning with the social distance. So I just want to appeal to parents, grandparents, whatever you go by, to please talk to your young folks, because you can win the fight in the street, but lose the coronavirus. And normally we would say you can win the fight, but lose the war. So that is my appeal. Thank you.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Would we like to say one more time to citizens how they can respond to this meeting?
Yes, I can answer that question. So we will post this video on both Channel 5 as well as our Facebook page as well, and can also upload it to YouTube. For future meetings that we hold, they have the opportunity to phone in and listen to the meeting. We will continue to work to try to figure out the live feed. I think probably Zoom and Facebook made some changes here recently to manage that, because more and more people are utilizing it. But if people have questions or comments, they can submit those to either an email address, which is commission@springfieldohio.gov, or by calling directly to the clerk's office at 937-324-7341. For today's meeting, for example, that started at 10 a.m., all questions and comments had to be submitted by either that email address or by phone an hour prior to the start of the meeting. And so we will keep that same policy and protocol moving forward, and we will make sure to list the time of the next commission meeting and also provide the time at which comments and questions need to be submitted to, again, either that email address or directly to the clerk's phone line.
Okay, best wishes until we meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you.
guys.
Wash your